the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough to be joined by Mike Lutz. Mike, could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Hi, Alison. Thanks for having me on. I am fairly new to writing. In the past, I have written a screenplay that was based on a story of my wife and I going to Europe, where she realized 2 days before she didn't have her passport. And the entire time, the week-long episode of this tragic and epic kind of story, I was saying to myself, this is going to go in a movie. And I started writing the script when I got back. And that kind of whetted my appetite to start writing. I'd been a songwriter, I'm a musician, and I had written songs in the past. And now I'm currently writing a Blobble, if you will. I think probably many of the listeners know what a Blobble is. But I decided to, about 2 years ago, partake into writing this novel that I'm now releasing as a serial online as a Blobble. So between, a little bit of script writing, a little bit of literary fiction, songwriting, that's pretty much been, the basis of my writing experience so far.
And a Blobble. Okay, because I actually saw that in your bio and I had to look at it about 4 times and I figured, oh, it's a blog and a novel put together. I got it. It's like a vlog, but it's a Blobble. Yes. So I think it's very clever. And tell me about how this is working. So you have been releasing these segments?
Yes. So the story I'm writing is called Skimming Through Life. And it is the story of, it's kind of based on a Van Morrison song called Cleaning Windows. And in that story, the protagonist is a window cleaner who, quote, plays jazz saxophone on the weekends in that down joint. He reads Christmas Humphreys, he reads Kerouac. And I love the idea that there was someone who had a very rich life, even though he didn't have a high station in life. And I morphed it to a story where I made him a pool cleaner. My main protagonist is a pool cleaner, which works perfect for Florida. And he's a pool cleaner by day, and he's a musician by night. And I've kind of incorporated some of the experiences I've had over the years playing music. And so he has his observations. There is a mayoral race that's happening for the city of Orlando that he somehow gets caught up in. The Blobble itself, once I started writing, I wrote for about 6 months. And then in June of 2019, I came across this concept of a Blobble. And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of cool. I had written the script and it had sat on a shelf for, not doing anything. And I thought, well, at least if I do something like this, I can get the writing out there. I didn't have to worry about getting something finished and edited and published before it could be presented to an audience. So it's something that is, I have to say it's kind of a pursuit of mine that's a hobby, but I also am going to, once I finish it, I will do a self-publish of it and have it on Amazon or whatever else. But it really is kind of like, by the time, I write some chapters, I kind of try to release something on a regular basis. COVID kind of actually, believe it or not, kept me from writing a little bit, because I didn't quite get the motivation as I should have. But right now it's about 45,000 words and 45 chapters. And people are welcome to go and read it if they like. It's Skimming Through Life, THRU for through.com. And I welcome their feedback if they go, and please leave a comment.
What type of reception have you had?
It's been friends and family. So the biggest challenge, I think, like anything, is marketing. Right now, for me, it's a pursuit to kind of get better as a writer. What essentially happened with me is, after I wrote the script, we attended a play here in Winter Garden that was at the Masons Lodge. I saw something on Facebook, you can come to the play tonight, it's $30 a plate, steak dinner and a show. And I'm like, Stacia, my wife, we got to go. It's a play at the Masons Lodge. I mean, come on, we got to do this. So when we got there, we met one of the actors in the show who runs the Winter Garden Writers Group, one by the name of Tess Nader. And I said, well, my wife is a writer, and I think she would absolutely love to do this. And I said, well, I guess I'll tag along too. So we started, we hosted the meetings initially when we joined at our house, and we started doing the prompts, and I was hitting it out of the park with the prompts. My wife was saying, I can't believe you can write like this. And I was like, well, I really didn't know I could write like this either. So it wasn't anything like I was just documenting the story of the trip to Europe. It was, I had to come up with creative ideas. So I kind of fell into it just by that association. And I kind of forget, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
I have no idea, but my next question for you is there a little competition there between you and your wife? Was it like you were like, woohoo, I got to do this?
I don't think there was competition. I think that she likes the fact that I do this. I don't want to step on her toes, because the success of our company that has really been the foundation of her incredible writing. And she was writing a novel at one point, and you know, she has it all mapped out in her head, but she set it down and she didn't pick it up again. But I don't think that, you know, I think she's kind of like, all right, well, I'm not quite sure, you know, where we're at, as you know, now you're in my world a little bit. And I don't mean to intrude. There was a story once where we were doing a project and she was slammed with a couple of projects. And I said, well, you know, let me take a chance. Let me try this project, try writing it. And it was very apparent that, you know, her touch in that field of writing was so much better than mine. And so we don't really, I think she appreciates the fact I do it, although I think she kind of thinks maybe there might be a little bit of, I kind of crossed over just a hair into her world, because it's nice that we have these separate types of identities in our company. But she enjoys that I enjoy it.
You mentioned your company. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Q Media Productions is our company. We started in June of 2002, and it is a production company that produces audio tours and mobile media tours for museums, national parks, art galleries. We've done projects as small as the Sedona Historical Museum of 2 employees up to Kennedy Space Center, that had a device that did augmented reality, virtual reality, all these different types of aspects, multi-language, this type of thing. We have worked all over the country. It's been a great way for us to be able to travel to all these different places. We've, even in the middle of Kansas, we say we've never gone to a place that we haven't found interesting or fascinating in some aspect. You know, even if you think about the wheat fields of Kansas, it was fascinating. So it really was, since our background was entertainment, we met at Universal Studios, and this was when we were in our 30s. We just kind of felt like there was this pursuit that allowed us to have a more enriching kind of production life than just doing things that were kind of traditional theater, theme park, television, you know, film production type things. And it's definitely a niche type of production company. Over the last 10 years, we've actually been doing a lot of audio description writing, which is writing for the blind. And since it's an ADA compliance thing for most of our clients, we then write and produce these audio described tours. So when someone of low vision or no vision goes to these facilities, they can then also have the experience of getting the what is unseen interpreted.
I'm going to totally break away from writing for a second and ask about, so on my Netflix, for example, I have the ability to have visual audio, so to speak. I can't remember what it's called. It's like, but it explains what the characters are doing while they're not speaking, which is really fascinating. Is that similar to what you're describing?
Yeah, because every television show, film, whatever that's produced has to have an audio description soundtrack. You know, I think it's really kind of maybe an untapped market for writing that maybe people aren't aware of that needs to happen. So when I have Apple TV as well, and every once in a while I hit the wrong button on the remote and I'm listening to the audio description track. So that's exactly the type of writing that we do. In our case, we do it for the physical spaces that, let's say, the visitor center for the Wright Brothers National Monument, or anything that we did a project for the Einstein Hospital Moss Museum up in Philadelphia, which actually used disabled artists who have their work, and then we did audio description of their work as well. So it's everything that, what you were encountering is the audio description for the film or television show. We're doing the audio description of the environments that people find themselves in.
Amazing. Are you describing the artwork as well?
Yes. Yeah, and many times, let's say, for example, we just did the project for Wright Brothers National Monument. So they have a visitor center. So the people are going to arrive to the visitor center, and we are taking the panel text that they may not be able to read and translating or having that as part of the production. We are describing the rooms that they are entering. We're also providing directions so they can navigate the space. So when it comes to the art museum, yes, if they're the pieces that are chosen, we have to then interpret what that piece is, whether it's sculpture, painting, whatever it might be, so that person that's there in front of that piece of work can get a sense of what it is that they would be experiencing. So yes, in that case, for an art museum, yes.
That is just incredible. What a wonderful service you were able to provide for people that are visually challenged.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful thing. We have friends of ours that we use as consultants. Sheila Young, who's with the Florida Council of the Blind, she will actually go with my wife Stacia on these places, to these places, and help her understand from her perspective, the challenges. Once Stacia writes a script, she comes in as a consultant and says, yes, okay, I can understand that this turn here, or yes, I get a sense of what this is that I'm standing in front of, to help make sure that the clients that we're dealing with are getting a bona fide and vetted kind of audio description project for their blind visitors. We've already had a blind person go through and kind of vet the experience.
I'm absolutely loving this particular conversation because this is a world I was not really aware of. Right. But I think about how valuable it is and how it really does expand the opportunity for writers. I mean, writers don't think about things like this. Most of the time they're busy thinking they have to work within a reality of a keyboard and their own imagination. But you're actually taking the words and you're building the world that's physical, that's really there, instead of creating an imaginary one. Oh, it's just, wow. What an incredible opportunity that you have had.
It's part of the things because we're such a boutique production company to begin with. It's really a niche of a niche that we do now. And I think that I used to teach audio production to students at Valencia. And I used to ask them, well, what's audio production? And they would raise their hands and say, well, we make fat beats, right? We're going to make, albums and things like that. And I'd say to them, well, did you watch, the basketball game last night? Did you hear the sounds of the shoes on the boards? They're like, well, yeah, well, somebody was there, doing this type of production. So I think when it comes to writing, there's so many worlds out there that maybe writers are like, and I'm a victim of it too. I wanted to make records when I first started studying audio. I thought, okay, music and music business and that type of thing. And what I do now is completely different than what I envisioned for myself when I first started this journey in audio. I think writing is going to be the same thing. I don't know where it's going to go next, because something gets, you get this inspiration, and the next thing you know, you're off on a tangent, and you're like, well, I never realized that this was the thing I was going to be doing, but yet here I am, pursuing it. So I think writers, this is a generalization, I'm sure people are very complex in what they're aware of, but there probably are more avenues for a way to market their skills possibly than the traditional idea of novel and short story or nonfiction, whatever it might be, that they've kind of envisioned it initially to be the thing that they're going to do.
Yes. And I also loved your visual of the basketball shoes squeaking. I imagine just being able to pay attention to the sound that, as you have done for your career, has helped you become a more complete writer, because you're able to take those little details that people don't think about. I mean, I know, for example, I teach writing, and a lot of times I'll ask someone, how do you describe writing opening up a doorknob, opening up a door. And, they're like, oh, well, you lean over and you pull. Like, well, no, actually you do a lot more than that. So, it's not just like putting your hand out and pulling your hand away. You actually have to grip the doorknob. You have to, get out of the chair. How do you get out of the chair? Do you slide out of the chair? Do you stand straight up? Do you have to push up from the back? There's all these things that you don't pay attention to until someone points it out to you. And so sound is one of those things where you've been able to focus on that. And I imagine that you have incredible detail about sound within your own Blobble.
Blobble. Yeah, my Blobble. Yeah.
Blobble. It's a new word for me. I'm going to put it in my lexicon.
Yeah. I think that because my main character on my Blobble is a musician, and so much of those experiences that I've had, so much sound, but, stage and performance and being in that moment where all of a sudden you're in the moment, but you're above the moment. You're observing, you're going through the process of, and I think a lot of times, being a performer or being a musician, you may have played a song 100 times and you're almost on muscle memory. And when you get to that moment, then all of a sudden you realize your place in the room, not just, on the stage, but the environment that you're within. We recently saw a documentary on Mark Twain, and Mark Twain had this really rich life being a riverboat captain. And he talked about how before he really started writing, that essentially when he did start writing, all the people that populated, the characters populated his books, were the people that he observed on his journeys as a riverboat captain. And I think that so often, to be a writer, a good writer, you have to have that ability to observe and understand. And like you're talking about the door, get a sense that, that there's nothing simple about the process if you want to convey it to effectiveness.
Absolutely. Mike, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions? Sure. Oh, but first, you know what? I'm going to ask, how can people get in touch with you?
My email is my first name, Mike, at my company, letter Q, mediaproductions.com. And they can also, if they go to the Blobble, skimmingthroughlife.com, they can leave a comment there if they want to leave an email address there or reach out that way. But email is probably the best way.
All right, fantastic. Now, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
I guess so.
Well, what's your favorite beverage?
My favorite beverage is probably iced tea.
Iced tea, sweet or unsweet?
Unsweet.
Unsweet, me too. Do you have any pets?
We actually have 3 cats. And one of the cats is mentioned the story of how we got this one stray that showed up at our place in my story. Smokey's our office cat. And we have a couple of cats that live in the house. So we have 3 cats.
Awesome. I'm not a cat person, so I can't comment there, but I'm a dog person, so I'm a pet person.
Yeah. So, we've had dogs too. Dogs and cats living together. There you go.
That's right. And do you have a go-to television show?
It's terrible to admit it, but I really love Larry David and I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's frightening how much he portrays sometimes the things I have in my head, which is awful. But I love Larry David. I love Seinfeld. I have worshipped at the altar, the comedy altar of David. And so Curb Your Enthusiasm is probably my go-to television show.
Well, Mike Lutz, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Allison. It's been a pleasure.
You all have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Alison out. Boom. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Mike Lutz is a mobile media tour producer with his company Q Media Productions. He's a musician, songwriter, photographer, and over the past few years, he's been exploring script writing and literary fiction. His current novel is called Skimming Through Life, written under his pen name, Michael Lutz, which is a story of a pool cleaner by day, musician by night, Jimmy Giannetti, and the people and events he gets caught up with in making his way through life. Skimming Through Life is being released as a serial novel and can be read at skimmingthroughlife.com. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at floridawriters.net.